We all know the result of last night's elections, and we're all a bit disappointed here this morning. It's a tough day for Democrats in the losses that we sustained.
They thought the elections last night were going to be a referendum on this president, and once again he proved never underestimate him, and that the American people put him and other Republicans in place for a reason.
People think that because someone or something is unpopular among the chattering class within Washington and New York, that somehow applies in Georgia or in South Carolina or in many places in Florida. And it's just not true. And that disconnect was brought to light in the presidential race in 2016, and I think it's been brought to light again last night.
The fallout from the special congressional elections last night continues. As you take a look at Georgia, the race board here, this is Karen Handel with a big win. Bigger than expected, actually, over John Ossoff, the Democrat. In South Carolina, a little tighter race than everybody thought, with Republican Ralph Norman winning, but not by as big a margin as once thought. The president tweeting out late last night, well, the special elections are over, and those that want to make America great again are 5-0. All the fake news, all the money equals zero. Then this morning, Democrats would do much better as a party if they got together with Republicans on health care, tax cuts, security. Obstruction doesn't work. As we pointed out last night on the show, 4 congressional special elections wins for Republicans, the one in California. Javier Becerra, 2 Democrats running. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, editor-in-chief for the Weekly Standard, editor-in-chief of LifeZette. Laura Ingram, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics, co-founder and publisher, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Steve, fallout and implications.
Well, boy, the discussion of these races certainly fell off the radar today. I mean, this was going to be the kind of result that defined the politics in this country through the midterm elections and was going to presage a Democratic sweep. And somehow people aren't talking about it as much in the media as you might have thought. Look, I think this was clearly a good night for Donald Trump. He has every right to crow about it. I think Republicans would be wise not to take too much comfort in these results. These are specific races. In the Georgia race in particular, both candidates kind of ran with Donald Trump at arm's distance. And, you know, Marco Rubio's point about the chattering classes in D.C. not liking Donald Trump is, I think, short-sighted. His approval rating is still 36–37%, depending on the polls. That's not something that Republicans are going to want to take going into midterm elections. There's a lot that needs to happen between now and those midterms if Republicans are going to hold their majorities.
Well, one of the things I heard was that Nancy Pelosi, in some of these districts around the country, is less popular than President Trump. She just came out moments ago with a letter to Democratic colleagues. The House Minority Leader says, as we take inventory of the special election results, it is important to note that we made important progress in the 4 special elections this year. The House was in play before the Georgia race. The House remains in play now. There are 70 Republican-held seats, more competitive than Georgia's 6. The president's numbers are in the 30s, and our base is energized. We must now put forth our message. Every effort was made to win last night, but we don't agonize, we organize. Organize inside the House, mobilize outside for the good of the American people.
San Francisco doesn't sell in most of the country. I mean, I love San Francisco. It's a great place, but San Francisco values, Nancy Pelosi likes to talk about them a lot. You see, it seems like last night, even though the margin of victory, I think, could have been bigger for Karen Handel if she actually embraced Trump a little more. I have the counter-conventional wisdom going into this race. I think she should have campaigned with him. I think the margin would have been 5 points, not the 3 points. There's a resistance in the country, I think, to the resistance. I think people want to see points on the board. They want to see some legislation that makes their lives better. And Republicans need happy voters. Democrats need to have an agenda that actually connects with those kind of more middle-of-the-road, independent voters who turned away from Obama and Hillary last time and turned toward Donald Trump. I do not think that they have put forth that agenda. I think they're good at resisting and blocking and the Russia, 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 but I don't think Georgia cared about Russia much. I don't think South Carolina did. Certainly Montana didn't. So I think Republicans have challenges, disunity. But I think the Democrats still don't see why they really lost this election, last election cycle.
Tom, take a listen to Senator Murphy and Congressman Crowley.
The
the fact that we have spent so much time talking about Russia has been a distraction from what should be the clear contrast between Democrats and the Trump agenda, which is on economics.
As much as I think people in Washington tend to focus on the issues of Russia and the president and the Republicans' inability to get much of anything accomplished, we need to focus on the local issues. That's what gets Democrats elected.
Boy, Tom, that's a different message than we've been hearing from Democrats on the Hill.
It's starting to dawn on them that what's been going on in the Beltway has been totally disconnected from what's been going on in the district. But even beyond that, Democrats have this issue. You already have some Democrats saying, look, the reason that Jon Ossoff lost is because he wasn't strident enough. He wasn't progressive enough in that district. And that necessarily isn't the best lesson for Democrats to take away from this. The other part of this, too, is, look, you can carpetbag in Senate races, but you got to have someone from the district. And to have, 82% of your money coming in from Hollywood and New York and all these other places, that doesn't go over well with people in these local congressional districts, especially ones in the South.
That debate question, when Karen Handel turns and says, who are you going to vote for? And it's just silence from Ossoff because he couldn't vote. He didn't live in the district. Charles.
Yeah, they say he lived down the street. I think it was 3.5 miles. A very long street it turned out to be. Look, I think the key here is what was in Pelosi's message, ironically. She said, we have to get our message out. They don't have a message. This is the same reason that Hillary lost. The left among the Democrats has a message. Sanders has a message. Nationalize health care. Raise taxes, increase regulation, impose income inequality. That's a message. That's actually an ideology. It has some attraction, but it's a minority. That's not going to win for them. But the center of the Democratic Party, the old Clinton, center left that dominated the party in the 90s and succeeded, it's dead. It's mute. It has nothing to say. So having nothing to say, they have now fixated on Trump. It's all on the resistance, all about Trump. What they learned last night is that that is not enough. That isn't enough to energize people. I mean, think of the big picture. Why do they want to win the House? For one reason. Not tax reform, not jobs. They want to win it so they can start impeaching the president, undoing the election of 2016. That is the biggest mistake, political mistake in political strategy I have ever seen, and I think people understand that's not a worthy cause.
All right, you're talking about Democrats at this health care rally. They did have something to say. Just take a listen.
We have a very simple message. No hearing, no vote. No hearing, no vote.
Together, we are going to keep the pressure up here on Republicans to bring Trump care out of the shadows into the light.
The number one priority from now until next week when we vote is to be loud.
We don't know what the bill looks like because it's been written by 13 male Republicans behind the closed door.
That's not true anymore. There were many different inputs to this health care bill that is informing, Steve. It is behind closed doors. We're expecting to see the Senate GOP version of something tomorrow. But as far as Democrats, they're still dealing with the issue of these insurance companies like Anthem pulling out of these different states. They're focused on, obviously, the transparency issue.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats are lucky that they're not going to be judged on their ability to rally crowds at events like this because they wouldn't do very well. Look, I think Republicans are in a tough spot on this. I mean, it isn't many of the same arguments that Republicans made as indictments of Obamacare and the process of Obamacare can be made today. Democrats are making those arguments. I think they're making them somewhat effectively. The bigger problem with Republicans is numbers. If you look at what's happening in the Senate, you've got conservatives, you've got who are asking for certain things, you've got moderates who are asking for other things. They can only lose 2 votes, and it doesn't appear right now, at least, that they're going to be able to do it.
At this moment, President Trump is arriving in Iowa. Air Force One has touched down, wheeling in there. Be a big campaign-style rally tonight. We expect to hear a lot about those special congressional elections. Maybe a little bit, Laura, about health care. What about this debate as we look live?
I think the president is smart to take this message on the road, getting back to economic renewal, tax cuts, tax reform probably won't be able to happen this year. But this is where he's really good. He's really good at rallying the people to his agenda. Make America great again. Let's clean up Washington. It's proving really difficult for him. There are swamp monsters in both the Republican and the Democrat Party that prefer to gobble him up. But he's putting up the good fight, and I think he has to rally the people in a way against Congress. It's a little risky, but I think that actually is a sweet spot for him. Look, he's going to say, I like these guys, they're good guys, but my goodness, they've had 7 years. They need to bring a piece of legislation to my desk that has enough votes so we can actually pass some legislation. I mean, Mitch McConnell has to know how many votes they have for something, and just at this point, they've got to pass that. I mean, it's ugly, but that's what he has to start doing.
Tom, what if President Trump isn't that much of an albatross to Republicans across the country? What if it's totally misread here in Washington as 2016 was?
Well, certainly the White House is hoping last night has some residual benefits for what's going on in Congress, that they've got some folks that will put a little steel in their spine, particularly in the Senate, because it is a dicey situation. And Trump sort of amplified that on his own by calling the Republican bill mean, and reportedly in this meeting. I mean, that sort of shows you what the tension that's there. So Mitch McConnell, I think they are going to put it to a vote. I think that's one of the things they learned from last time is they're going to go for this thing, and they don't know whether they're going to have the votes, whether they're going to get 42 votes or 50 votes, but they are going to put senators' feet to the fire, and really it'll come down to the argument, do you want to be the senator who keeps Obamacare in place, and do you want to bear that burden? Because otherwise, that's what's going to happen.
Last word as we wait for the president to exit Air Force One, Charles.
We saw the problem with the Democrat strategy on health care when we just showed Ron Wyden saying that our purpose between now and then, our task, is to be loud. Loud is not a program. They're obsessed with the process, secrecy. Americans don't care one way or the other if this plan was hatched, you know, in a winery or pulled out of a refrigerator. All they want is something that works. The president's problem is that he stepped on the message, and he's going to have to get the 51 in the Senate. I think it's doable, but as long as they talk about substance, not process, they're already ahead of the game.